Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. How are you, my dear students? Hope so you're in the best of health by the grace of Allah Almighty. As you know, that nowadays we are facing very difficult time, but inshallah this time will pass very soon. And your institution, Adistani Sufia, has arranged online classes for your convenience in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. And I warmly welcome you, my dear student, online classes. Jeffrey Archimedes said about biology that it gives you a brain and life turns it into mind. I'm your teacher, Misbah Ashraf, and I'm going to teach you biology in these online classes. In these online classes, we're going to cover the remaining topic of our Olevel-1 class, that is respiration. We covered 7 topics, but we were unable to cover this one because of COVID-19 pandemic circumstances. So we're going to study respiration in detail. We will also solve its topical, and we are also going to practice some of the worksheets of respiration. In respiration, we are going to cover the following topics, and these are why do living organisms respire, respiration, gaseous exchange and breathing, aerobic and anaerobic respiration, the gas exchange system, which is the respiratory man in our syllabus, and mechanism of breathing. Along with this, we are also going to touch the gaseous exchange in plants as well. Well, the first question which comes into our mind when we talk about respiration is, why do living organisms respire? Or why is there a need of respiratory system or respiration in organisms? We know that living organisms, they need energy purposes. For example, they need energy for the movement, for the growth, for the cell division, for the active transport, for the reproduction, etc. So from where does this energy comes from? This energy comes from the food they eat. And this is released from the food during respiration. So we can say that respiration is the process of release of energy. So that's why living organisms need to respire to produce energy and to carry out their function. What is respiration? It's a process in living organisms that involves production of energy by breakdown of carbon-hydrogen bonds which are present in organic food by oxidation-reduction reactions. Here it's important to know what is organic food and what are oxidation reactions. Organic food or organic molecules are those molecules that contain carbon and hydrogen bonds present together. Its examples are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. We have also studied in nutrition in detail about these organic compounds. So discussed about the structure of glucose, fructose and maltose. In glucose there is C6H12 and O6. In its structure we can see that carbon and hydrogen bonds are present together, so we can say that glucose is an organic molecule. Same was the structure of fructose, so it's organic molecule. We also discussed about the structure of amino acids and proteins, and we also saw that amino acids also contain carbon and hydrogen bonds together, so they are also the organic molecules. On the other hand, we have inorganic molecules. Inorganic molecules do not contain carbon and hydrogen bonds present together. One of the example of inorganic molecule is carbon dioxide. In carbon dioxide, we see that carbon is present, but hydrogen is not present. In carbon dioxide, carbon is present with oxygen. So we can say that carbon are not present together, so that's why it's an inorganic molecule. Another example of inorganic molecule is water. In water we see that hydrogen is present but carbon is not present. So we can say that it's also an inorganic molecule. From these examples we have understood about organic molecules. The next term which is important in respiration, that is oxidation reduction reactions. Well, oxidation reduction reactions can be defined in three ways. These can be defined in terms of oxygen, these can be defined in terms of electrons, and this can also be defined in terms of hydrogen. So oxidation is the addition of oxygen into any compound, or it's also the removal of hydrogen from any compound or molecule, or it's also defined as the removal of electrons from any compound or molecule. While on the other hand, reduction is opposite to oxidation and it's defined as the removal of oxygen from any molecule. It's also defined as the addition of hydrogen into any compound or molecule, and it's also defined as the addition of electrons into any compound or molecule. Let's have a look at this equation to understand the concept of oxidation reduction reactions. Here is an equation shown, which is the equation of respiration, in which you can see that glucose is oxidized, C6H12O6 glucose, or it reacts oxygen and it produces carbon dioxide and water. It has been proved through experimental evidences that glucose is converted into carbon dioxide and oxygen is converted into water during respiration. And in our previous slide, we have studied about reduction reactions, that these can be defined in three ways. These can be defined in terms of hydrogen, these can be defined in terms of oxygen, and this can also be defined in terms of electrons. So here in this equation, these are defined in terms of hydrogen. You can see in glucose highlighted the hydrogen atom. Hydrogen is removed from glucose and it is converted into carbon dioxide. And in our previous slide, we studied that the removal of hydrogen from any molecule is known as oxidation. So we can say that here oxidation has taken place. While on the other hand, you can see that oxygen is converted into water after receiving hydrogen atoms which were lost by glucose. And in our previous slide, we studied that addition of hydrogen into any compound or molecule is known as reduction. Here we can see that reduction has taken place when oxygen receives hydrogen from glucose and it's converted into water. These oxidation reduction reactions mostly take place at the same time because the hydrogen atoms must be gained by some of the atom or molecule. Same way, lost electrons are also gained by another atom or molecule in a reaction. And same is true for the oxygen atoms. They are also lost, gained by some of the molecule in one reaction. These reactions are taking place simultaneously, and these are also known as the redox reactions. Red is taken from reduction and ox is taken from oxidation. And in living organisms, all reactions which are taking place, these are redox reactions. So respiration is the oxidation reduction reaction in which glucose is oxidized. It reacts with oxygen and it produces carbon dioxide, water along with energy. Organic molecule. In organic molecule, carbon-hydrogen bonds are broken down and it's converted into water, carbon dioxide, and those bonds produces energy, which we studied in our first slide about respiration. The next term is gaseous exchange. As the name indicates, it's the exchange of gases between the surrounding and the living organisms. or it's the process of taking enough air, which is mostly oxygen, from the surrounding to the cells, and the transfer of the products of which are carbon dioxide and water from the cells back to the surrounding medium. In our previous slide, we have also discussed the equation of respiration in detail, in which the glucose was oxidized. The oxygen, which is used for the oxidation of the glucose, comes into the body during gaseous exchange. And we also the products of respiration, which are carbon dioxide and water. This produced carbon dioxide during respiration is also taken out of the body during gaseous exchange. You can see in the diagram, in first diagram the person is taking in air or inhaling oxygen, or in second diagram the person is giving out carbon dioxide, which is produced during respiration. So we can also see that gaseous exchange is the part of breathing, or it also helps in breathing because it takes in oxygen, which is used during respiration, and it also takes out which is produced during the respiration. So indirectly we can say that gaseous exchange is also helping breathing. Another important term to be discussed is breathing. It's a part of process of gaseous exchange, and it refers to the muscular contractions and the movements of the ribs, which result in the movement of air in and out of the lungs. You can see in the first diagram, the person is taking in air or taking in oxygen, is inhaling, and the second diagram, the person is taking out carbon dioxide, taking out air, we can say is exhaling. And in previous slide, we studied that taking in of air and taking air is the gaseous exchange. Or we can say that the person is exchanging gases between the surrounding and the lungs. So breathing is basically the muscular movements or muscular contractions and its ribs, which increases the area inside the lungs for taking in air. As you can see in the first diagram, that the blue shaded area is larger in size, and this is possible because of some of the muscular contractions and some of the movements of the ribs. And you can see in the second diagram, the purple area is the same area which is shaded blue in the first diagram, and this is smaller in size. And this decrease in size is possible again because of some of the muscular contractions and the movements of the ribs, which help in exhaling or taking the carbon dioxide from lungs or out of the body. We are going to discuss the mechanism of breathing in detail in next slides. This was all about today's lecture. We have to discuss on these points, and inshallah in our next video we will continue the same topic. If you feel difficulty, you can contact me or you can post in the comments of this video. Always stay happy and blessed. Keep smiling. Take care and Allah Hafiz.